and welcome back to Nolan Financial Radio. My name is Tara Nolan from Nolan Financial. And if you're just tuning into the show, welcome. We are going to be talking today about financial follies. We always do an educational topic on this show because Chris and I believe that your financial success begins with being able to ask good questions. And so our biggest goal for any show that you listen to is that you walk away with some good questions to ask, because that's going to set you up for success and make sure that you get a plan that's working for you. So while you're, if you have a question during the show, I would say, please feel free to give Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. And definitely visit our website at nolanfinancialpartners.com. While you're at the website, you can actually scroll down and click on the radio page. And we record all these shows and we do lots of educational topics from 401ks to Medicare to IRAs. So we cover a lot of topics and a lot of good educational topics. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the program on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So again, welcome to the show. We look forward to having you and sharing this information and knowledge with you. And before we jump into it, I just want to reach out and say hello to my amazing co-host, Tony Shore. It's all about Tony and I having a good time.
It is. Well, Tara, it's great to be here. It's always about having a good time. And really, we have fun with the show. I hope our listeners enjoy it and viewers enjoy it as well. I know I always do. And we always have a great one. And I think you've got a great topic lined up for the show today. You were telling me about it before the show. It sounds like a fun one anyway. And, you know, I've been good. I'm moving my daughter into college, her first year of college this week, and I've been really busy. My partner in crime, Mitch Heil, who edits our shows for the radio and for podcasts, is out all week. So I'm doing some editing myself, which I can do it, but I do a really good job, but I'm kind of a perfectionist, and it takes me, I'm going to go out on a limb and say 100 times longer than it does Mitch to edit a show.
Oh yeah. Right. Well, you're vested because you're on, it's your voice.
Oh yeah. And when I hear myself go, during the show, I'm like, I need to edit that out. So, and I'll edit that one out and then it won't be funny. So, but Tara, what are we talking about on the show today? It seems like an interesting topic, financial follies, right?
Well, we're going to have a little fun with it, Tony, because I don't want to call them fails, because these are follies or things that we all do. And I just, I deal with a lot of clients and I always think it helps people feel better when they realize like, oh, I'm not alone. Because, sometimes we're like a little embarrassed, like we don't want people to know some of the things that we do or think.
Yeah, that's true.
And this show today is just going to be about sharing a little fun with everybody and kind of looking at things that aren't necessarily catastrophes. But if you think about it, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a case where I could probably make a better financial decision for myself. Maybe.
Sure.
And
yeah, follies is a better word than fails. I mean, follies, you think of sports bloopers or America's Funniest Home Videos sometimes, but it's a good-natured way of looking at, hey, mistakes, or accidents happen, mistakes happen. Right. But, financial follies, I love how you use it with your clients. And I'm guessing it's also going to fuel a terrific show for us today, right?
It is, Tony, because, we want to just give people the chance, like life is hard enough and we make enough of our own mistakes. So if you have this opportunity to go, oh, I was thinking about doing that, maybe I won't. Gives you that chance to make your own fresh mistakes so that you're not making the ones that have been made by others. And so we're going to just jump right in here. So okay. I found like this great article that just kind of kicked the idea off for me and just reminded me to go, I like to point these things out to clients because sometimes they find that they're spending more money, but they don't feel like it. They're like, why do I have this big credit card bill? What did this happen? How did this happen? I can tell you this happened, Tony, with one of my clients. He was newly retired and he had been an intense engineer, really busy. And all of a sudden we sat down for our first meeting after they had retired. We did a little earlier one than waiting the full year. And I sat down with him and his wife, and there was a little bit of a grumpy atmosphere. And I said, well, hey guys, what's happening? And he said, well, just take a look at this. And here he slid me the credit card bill. She's spending all my money. And I'm like, well, what happened? Because you were fine 2 months ago.
Yeah.
and she wasn't spending all of your money 2 months ago. So what happened? So we actually took it and we went through the credit card list, and Tony, everyone's Lowe's, Home Depot, Lowe's. I'm like, how many power tools do you have now?
Yeah.
And he had just been getting caught up on all the projects, like building a new pen in the backyard for the dog, and, building the actual dog house, and, the little repairs around the house. And so, of course, a new job requires a new tool, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You can't do a project without a new tool. And now he had all this time to do the things. And so what had happened was it can creep up on you when you're not used to it. And it was a new experience for him because he just had been working. He's one of those guys that was working 60 to 80 hours a week. Yeah. So for him, it wasn't like he was doing anything different other than he just now had time.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those things that we want to talk about because it can creep up on you. Like, I love this example. Let's use lunch as an example. Let's say you're spending $30 a week on an afternoon meal, because isn't it amazing that that's how much it can cost even just to go like to McDonald's?
Oh, it's crazy.
For a family. Yeah. And that's not going to make or break you, right? $30.
Yeah.
But now let's think about it like this. $30 a week is $120 a month. Again, not life-changing, but now let's go $30 a week for 52 weeks. Tony, that's $1,560.
Yeah, so it adds up. Yeah. And what about people who spend $30 a day on food? Some people eat out at lunch and spend $12, $15 for their own lunch if they work and then go out to eat or order in. You pay those delivery fees, and then maybe they eat out at supper too, or for breakfast. And get coffee and a sandwich at Starbucks on their way to work. So it can add up. And I mean, $30 a week is probably a minimum that a lot of people spend. It's probably a lot more, and then it adds up even more, right?
Well, it really does. And I can just take you back to when I was a lieutenant. To go eat at McDonald's for lunch was $5. And I was at that time trying to work on my private pilot's license. And I had to go look at it. I was like, I can't afford to eat out, even at McDonald's, if I want to go get my private pilot's license.
Right.
And so it just became, and it's nice when as you get older, you tend to get beyond the space where you have to make either or decisions. But here's the thing, Tony, is once you get to the place where you have enough money, you start to think about the habit pattern and go, even if I can spend, $30 a couple times a week at McDonald's, is that what I want to do?
Right.
Is that how I want to spend my money? Is that what I want to do for my health? So there becomes lots of other reasons to think about it. And it's interesting too, Tony, though, because sometimes I'll catch myself wanting to treat myself out just because I can. Because when I was younger, I was poor and I couldn't. So sometimes it's like a personal freedom thing to be able to go, I'm going to have that snack just because I can.
Right. Oh, I know the feeling. And, you can fall into that trap easily. You think, oh, I grabbed a $10 lunch today. What's the big deal? But if you do it every day, obviously the end result is obvious. So.
Right. But it's interesting how it's just sometimes what the things we do for convenience or to feel independent, but it's not really doing the thing we want it to do.
Right.
And so I just kind of like that idea. Then the next thing, Tony, actually, you shared this with me. The article was talking about those things that just drip money out of your account, those ongoing scheduled payments.
Yep. Automatic payments, services, month subscription services, right?
You were right. And you were talking about how you're very smart with it. Like you'll subscribe to Netflix and watch all the programs you want. And when you're tired with Netflix, you'll cancel Netflix and then you'll move over to Amazon Prime.
Yep.
Or then you'll move over to Disney. But I love how you just pick one at a time.
Yeah, because they don't have contracts like cable used to. If there's no contracts with your streaming services, you can use it for a while, unsubscribe, start up another service, unsubscribe, and go back and forth. That'll save you a little money. And so much, because at one point we started doing it because at one point we had, there are 6 streaming services and like 2 of them we never watched. And that's money, that's, between 10 and $10 and $20. Usually now some of them are $15 a month, for a streaming service, HBO Max or something. So it really can hurt. It can hit your bank account more than you think nothing of it. It's like, what's $10 a month? What's $15 a month? That's nothing. Right. But when you have when you have 5 people in your household and you're subscribing to a few things, and your daughter, maybe my daughter or my son, you gave them the credit card to subscribe to some, live gaming service or online service. It's like, oh, okay, now you get the credit card bill or your checking account bill, and you see all these withdrawals for all these services, and it adds up a lot.
It really does. And I had a class where we talked about that. It was kind of a genius marketing switch that someone thought of. And I was at the hair salon the other day, Tony, and they had said, hey, you want this magazine? And you just sign up, with your credit card. It's free for the first 3 months.
Yep.
And then you just cancel it when you don't want it. And I just thought, oh, that's beautiful, because it's going to be like $20 and then I'll forget about it.
Yep.
And so that's what they count on. How long will they get out of it before I go, I don't even want this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this coming in the mail.
Yeah.
And so it's just really interesting, the psychology of things and how we end up just having little drips. It's like having if you had a bucket of water and then there's just little holes in it. Yeah. And trying we want to make that bucket as waterproof as possible so that we're spending money on the things that we want.
Yeah, that's a folly that a lot of us fall into easily. I'm sure everybody could look at their bank statement or their credit card statements or both and find things. It's like, what's this going for? And it's some monthly fee of something you don't really need or you don't use. So there are a lot of ways to cut down, and that's a big folly. I'm glad you brought that up. And and also time is an issue here, because let's not forget, you're supposed to be spending time working, sleeping, and with family or loved ones. So if you have 10 different entertainment streaming services, maybe you probably don't have time to watch all of them anyway, because you should be doing some of those other things as well.
I love that. And especially I was thinking about that too when I was looking at this article, because it's summertime right now. And this is the time, like in the evening when it starts to get dark, in Colorado, it gets dark so early once the wintertime hits. But now it's staying light till almost 8 or 9 o'clock. And so Chris and I, we've shifted so that after dinner, we're going and taking our walk.
Ah, that's nice.
And so we don't have as much time for TV.
And that's a good thing, probably. You're getting outside, you're spending time together where you can talk or, enjoy nature. And it's healthier than sitting on the couch and watching TV. It's fun to watch TV shows with Chris or whoever, our friends or loved ones. But I think it's better if you can communicate some and get exercise and fresh air. So that's a good tip for everyone, for all of us. And I could do that more as well. I think that's great. Speaking of credit cards, I bet there's a lot of follies you see with credit cards as well, right?
Well, credit cards, that's like the thing. I think it should be taught in high school. But a credit card, it's like magic, right? You hand someone this card and they give you stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's not like the old days where you actually had to have cash in your wallet. And if you didn't have cash in your wallet, you didn't get to buy something. Right. And a credit card, it's good for convenience, and it's good for establishing your credit history. And actually, I like it. We just actually did some of our taxes, and it makes it easy because we have a record, right? Because we don't use cash. We put everything on our credit card. So those are the positive sides of credit card. But the thing is it can make it too easy. And you'll catch yourself like buying things that you don't necessarily need, because it's just easy, and you don't have, and I don't even carry cash anymore. So I have to say I'm guilty of using my credit card for everything. But you just want to make sure that you've had some thought process, whether it's like the beginning of the month or whenever you reconcile and kind of go through your statements, that you kind of go in your head, okay, here's the things I'm going to buy. And you kind of make your own thresholds to go. So you have some kind of a thought process. Is this something that's on my list of things that I'm going to buy? Like groceries and gas for the car. Okay, you're going to buy those things. But kind of Chris and I have an unspoken agreement, basically, that if we're going to buy something that's more than $500, we'll talk about it. And, we don't need each other's permission, but it's just to go, is this something that we really want?
Right.
And because it's so easy just to throw things on the credit card. And here's the thing, Tony, is I do have some clients that are like, well, that's why I like my debit card, because it just comes out of my bank account and it's like a check. The only thing I don't like about debit cards, Tony, is they don't have that layer of protection. And I had a client who had that debit card stolen. And like if someone steals your credit card, then you have a chance to dispute it with the credit card company.
Right.
But when you throw your debit card, they can just clean out your bank account and there's no protection. Yeah, so it's one of those things. Good. I like it because it gives you that you can't overspend, because you either have money in the bank or you don't, but then it doesn't have that layer of protection. So isn't it hard, Tony? Like everything it depends.
Yeah. It is. It is. Well, I think now would be a good time, because it sounds like we're getting into some financial planning and some ideas that you use to help your clients. How can our viewers and listeners out there get a hold of you, set up a meeting with Chris and or yourself to sit down and talk about having a financial strategy and plan?
Sure, Tony. So the number to call is 719-210-4242. And especially for today's show, for the folks listening that are interested to go, what mistakes am I making that I don't even know that I'm making, and want to get that second opinion to look at what their plan actually is, give Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. And Tony, we set aside complimentary appointments for today's show, specifically for those people who are like, I hear what you're saying, and I don't want to be making these mistakes. I want to have a plan that makes sense, because I want to be set up for my financial success and not have all of my financial resources just dribbling out of the bottom of my bucket because I didn't have a plan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You have to have a plan in place. And that's true. The leaky bucket analogy. I like that one, Tara. But what's the website that people can go to as well? There's so many resources on there. Give that web address one more time.
Sure, Tony. The website is nolanfinancialpartners.com.
All right. Yeah, it's a great site
to visit it. And you can actually, right from the website, you can book a discovery call to sit down and have your complimentary appointment right from the website.
All right. Well, you know what? Today, you're talking to us about common financial follies, Tara, and I think it's been anything but a folly. It's been a great show. So let's keep up this momentum. What do you have next for us?
Well, the new one that comes up, Tony, it's not a new idea. It's just about when you're looking at buying a new set of wheels, going to get that new car. Buying a new car, I mean, that's like, there's so much emotion tangled up in a new car. Remember when you're 16 and you get permission to take the family car out, or maybe if you were lucky enough you got a car when you were 16. And, and I can remember when I was able to buy my first car for myself, like it's not just about the car, it's about all the independence that comes with it. And so one of the things that I like to talk to people so they don't mix it is this idea of, do you need a new car, or do you need a car that's reliable to get you where you're going to go? And think about that, because getting a new car just right off the top, it's not smart financially, because cars are one of those luxury items. As soon as you drive it off the lot, it loses value.
Yeah, unfortunately, it really does. They depreciate in value so much instantly.
And so, and I would say separate it out like this. If like a car is your thing and that is your thing, then you can look at getting a new car. But if it's not really your thing, do you want to spend your money on that? And I can tell you, Tony, we had this conversation recently with one of my clients, and what we talked to him about was he has his truck. He loves his truck. His truck is his baby, but he has a very long commute to work. So actually what he does now is he has his truck, and that's what he does in his free time. But then he got himself a good, reliable commuter for just the back and forth to work when he's just not seeing anybody. So he's saving a lot of money on maintenance and just gas and all that kind of stuff. Yep. So kind of split it down the middle. So he does have his nice truck for when he's going out on the weekends and going out with his wife and for that kind of situation. So it just goes back to that, being intentional and conscious about the decisions you make with your money. Like, are you doing it because you want it, or because you're trying to keep up with your neighbor next door?
Right. And that leads into, I was going to ask what kind of advice you'd give somebody who has 200,000 miles on their current vehicle. So they are 250,000. So they pretty much have to upgrade right now, which is it's a tough time to buy a vehicle. But that want and need, they have different meetings. So then that comes into play, right?
Absolutely does, Tony. And that's a great lead in right there, is that you may want one of those big SUVs that seats 8 people.
Yeah.
But how many kids? Do you have one kid at home? 2? Do you really want a vehicle that sits 8? And so when you stick to your needs rather than your wants, that's going to really help you save money.
Yeah. Good point.
And just, things to remember, like, some of these SUVs, they cost a little more to purchase, a little more. It's not just the purchase, but it costs more to insure them. It costs more in the fuel. So there's always other little ancillary things that can add up. So if you're buying it just because you want it, or because you want the neighbors to be impressed with the car you have, just think it through and go, is that how you want to spend your money?
Right.
And when I have these conversations with my clients, Tony, a lot of times they're like, oh, so I could get this car, or I could get something that's reliable that does what I want, and then I can take this awesome vacation to Hawaii.
Yeah. Rather than buying a brand new car, maybe get one that's just 2 years old with low mileage. It's still going to be reliable, but wow, you're going to get it paid off sooner. The payments are going to be much smaller. And if you buy a car that's reliable and gets good gas mileage instead of a big truck or SUV, those are great. That's what everybody wants right now. And those are the status symbols. But, I've known people who reach that point where, hey, they have the money. They're able to purchase a brand new rather than a gently used vehicle. But in most cases, they're choosing new because it's a status symbol. It's not because they need it. It's because they want it. So just because you can afford something doesn't necessarily make it a smart financial move either, right?
Exactly. And that's just where you have to be very clear. So if that's where you're going to choose to spend your money on a status symbol, then you're going to not have that money available somewhere else. So just be very clear about what you're doing. For me, I would rather take that trip to Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can tell Tony, I do have a brother who a car is his thing. He enjoys it, and that's his thing. But he's been very intentional about it.
Sure.
So
yeah, and that's different. And you have to talk to your financial advisor, look at where you're at and what you need and where your priorities are as far as your finances. If you want to travel, probably not a good idea to spend, go out and buy that new Corvette. Right.
Tony, you hit on it. That's the key. And this is what good financial planning is all about, is understanding your priorities and your goals. It starts with understanding those 2 things very clearly. And then you figure out how you're going to spend your money and how you're going to save. And where people get in trouble, Tony, is they don't have a plan. So they don't really understand what their goals are. And then they use up all their resources before they can make the plan. And then they go, what happened? It's time for me to retire, and I haven't saved the nest egg that I want to have. And it gets right back to what you said, Tony, is just understanding your priorities, looking at the resources that you have, and you build that plan for success.
Yeah. Well, and, cars have been just skyrocketing in value, harder to find, more expensive. But housing, that's gone crazy too. That's a a lot of people make mistakes, especially right now when buying a house too, don't they?
Oh, yeah, Tony. And I can tell you right now, Chris and I are house shopping. So we had one of our rental properties for years. The guys lived in there for 10 years.
Sure.
And we always told him if he wants to buy the house, we'll sell it to him. And he just decided, he's like, I want to buy it. So we're like, oh boy, because we're going to do a 1031 exchange. And so now we're looking for another rental property.
So you have to, while you're saying that, if I can jump in to explain to our listeners, and I didn't understand this at first, and you mentioned this in a previous show, that the reason now you have to look for it, I thought, well, you can sell that house and put the money in a retirement account or put it in stocks and let it grow. But then you have to pay taxes on all those gains, right? So What you're saying is the reason you need to look for another property to buy is because if you use the money from the sale of a home to put toward the purchase of another, you don't have to pay taxes. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I don't have to pay taxes now. Someday it'll catch up with me.
Oh, well, sure. Yeah.
But we're going to kick that can down the road. No, Tony, thank you for clarifying that, but that's exactly right. But last week, we spent an entire afternoon, Tony. I think we looked at 20 houses.
Wow.
And it's just amazing. Like these houses, like some of them are like 5 bedrooms, and then they finish the basements, and they have 4-car garages. And, Chris and I are looking at it through the lens of what is going to be a good rental property.
Right.
And, people only pay so much for rent. And you see people that have gotten these houses that are so big that they're just untenable.
Yeah.
And they
if you have a family of 4, you don't need 5,000 square feet, right?
You don't have to have it. And then you just, you look at the money, and especially I see a lot of these houses, people have done things like add extra rooms on instead of just working with the space that they have and just being more economical. That was the decision Chris and I did with our remodel a couple of years ago. Is we were, being encouraged to just add on an extra room, with the glass and do all that. And we kind of thought about it, and we're like, it's just the two of us. We don't need more space. We just need the space we have to be more comfortable.
Right.
And so
good point.
Instead of increasing the square footage, which would have increased the amount to heat it and the amount to cool it and all that, we just actually turned that money into taking the space that we had and making it more comfortable. And so we're actually enjoying that. But it's really tempting to just it's like ingrained in us in the marketing is you got to make it bigger. You're going to do a remodel, let's add an extra room. And you got to remember all these different things. It's about the taxes and then the upkeep and then the titles. And so you just have to remember every money decision you make has the second and third order effects. That's true. So that's why Chris and I like to sit down with people and go through the plan and say, okay, let's talk about the decision that you want. And let's talk about what's the consequence of that decision versus, your long-term goal is to have this kind of retirement. So do you want to, increase the cost of your daily living with your house by increasing the heat bill, the cooling bill, all of those things? Or do you want to make a smart, more economical decision, and then you can save that money towards retirement. So then when you retire, then you can go play. So we like to have those conversations.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And, we talked about housing in a recent episode as well. And I think a lot of people are spending a lot of money on upgrades, putting that backyard kitchen and grill area in, or a swimming pool. During COVID, a lot of people did a lot of home remodeling and upgrades. And a lot of people are thinking, oh, now I've put all this money into my house, I can get that much more for it. And while houses are selling for more, a lot of people aren't getting back what they put into it. So you have to be careful. You have to do the math, right?
Well, and you have to really understand what kind of upgrades matter. I think I was telling you about this. One of my clients she bumped out one of her rooms and she added about really what amounted to about 6 extra feet. But because she bumped a wall out, they had to extend the roof and do all this. So it ended up costing almost $70,000.
Yeah.
For 5 extra feet. And she's like, well, I'll just get it back. It'll increase the value of the house. It did not.
No.
And the realtor was like, for 5 extra feet, that may add an extra $10,000 to the price of the house. And
and this is, we've had that, we just had this conversation. Like my neighbor, he did some remodeling and it actually made the bathroom huge and a walk-in closet, but he had to remove a bedroom to do it. And the things that matter are number of bathrooms, not how big, but number of bathrooms and number of bedrooms. That's the number one thing that can add or decrease value to a home. The first thing is how many bedrooms does it have? Oh, it has 5 bedrooms. It's going to cost more. It's going to cost more than a 4-bedroom. It's going to cost more than a 3-bedroom. But he eliminated a bedroom from a 4-bedroom house, and it decreased the value of his home so much, he undid it. He completely undid the remodel so he could get that bedroom back because it put his house in a different category and it was worth a lot less. Like a crazy, it took 50 or 100 grand off it took almost $100,000 off the value of the home because it went from a 4-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, and so many more people are looking for 4 bedrooms than 3. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It's just crazy. Yeah, the housing market, we could go on forever, but I think that's great. And this has been a great discussion. And so let's just keep rolling. We're going to jump into the next segment. And, we've looked at a lot of common financial follies and what they can do to people's financial strategy. So what do you have for us next before we have to go today?
Well, I think, Tony,
actually, you know what? We should probably... Tara, I'm sorry to do this. We're actually out of time. The radio show time limit, we could go on forever. We should do one of those extra segments for the YouTube viewers, right? How some shows do that they have a time limit when they're on TV or on the radio. but then for extra, you go online. But I just realized we are out of time for today's show. I guess we rambled too much about the housing market because it's so crazy. But do you have anything you want to add before we go?
Well, the bottom line, Tony, from today's show, I just want to add is it's all about having a strategy that's written down. And so Chris and I have set aside 20 complimentary appointments for those first 20 callers that want to sit down and do that complimentary meeting to talk about what is your goal and do you have a strategy to get there. So Tony, that number is 719-210-4242. Really excited to help people who are interested to take control of their financial life and have that strategy in place so that they succeed with their finances.
All right. Well, Tara, great show today. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Nolan Financial Radio with our host, Tara Nolan.
Join us again for another episode of Nolan Financial Radio. Take care, and we'll talk with you next time.